like a star, but only strictly where I'm famous. I'm in this for the longest haul, like we'll see where it takes us. I'm throwing back these double shots like whiskey here is weightless. Cause this career I chose was even riskier than Vegas, yo.
Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. Very, very excited to kick off 2024, especially with my guest today. It is going to be a very, very special year for many of us as I've got good vibes about it. But today, we have a very, very special guest. Super excited. She's a dear friend of mine, but you may know her as well as the love expert. Damona Hoffman is a dating coach, a TV personality, and really a speaker. And it's all about love. And she actually is a recent author, and we're going to talk all about that today. But you may know Donna from the Drew Barrymore show, where she is the expert, the love expert, talking about all things love. What are our patterns? What's going on? And how do we really release those boundaries and ideas that we have around love to really bring in that person? So I'm super, super excited to bring in Damona today. And we're going to dive in. We're going to talk about everything. So put your hands together for Damona Hoffman. Hi, Damona. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me back, Colby.
Oh, I am so excited, and we have like so much to talk about today. I mean, I know you've been so busy over the last few years, really helping people find their love. You've written for a column for the New York Times. Obviously, we have this book coming out. You're on the Drew Barrymore regularly, E News Tonight. So, tell me a little bit about this journey. I know it's been going on like 15 years. You've been this love expert. What what do you think inspired you to kind of take that path of helping others find true love?
I was an absolute love cynic. I thought it's never going to happen for me. I don't have what it takes. I'm not like one of the it girls. And I really figured out that the more I leaned into my authenticity and the things that really made me different and unique and weird in some settings actually were the things that were most attractive to the right kind of people. So I was actually working at the time that I was dating, I was working in casting and I was teaching classes for actors in how to market themselves and how to be someone that would stand out to a casting director. And I was online dating at the time. And this is, way back like 20 years ago. I was online dating and I started to realize the similarities between what I would tell actors about having a headshot that got noticed and what I needed to do with my dating profile photos to attract someone authentically. So I applied what I was learning professionally to my love life, ended up meeting my husband, and then other people started coming to me for my secret.
Also, I think being unapologetic as well about being who we are, I think is so important because I find that so many people try to change who they are in order to bring in or attract the person that they think is the right person for them. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like rather than just being who you are. I mean, what is your take on that?
Well, it's sometimes it's hard to access that. It's hard to know what foot to put forward and even who you truly are, especially when we're looking at the endless swipe and social media. We get a lot of messaging that tells us what a relationship is supposed to look like,
Yeah.
what we're supposed to look like. And what my new book, F the Fairy Tale, is all about is setting all that aside. You
Yeah.
get to write your own love story. You get to do it on your timeline in your way if you take the steps to really clarify what you want that path to look like for you.
I love it. Well, let's talk about F the Fairy Tale. First of all, amazing title. How did
Thank
you
you.
come up with that?
I've been hosting my podcast for like 11 years now, and I get a lot of questions submitted from listeners. I was just really feeling this growing frustration around dating, this dread, this overwhelm, this burnout that people kept writing in about. And I felt like everybody was saying, F the fairy tale. I'm not following the path that my parents or my grandparents did. I'm not doing it the old-fashioned way, but I still want love. I mean, ultimately, that's really one of the most important elements of our lives, to feel supported, to feel cared for. And we need human connection, whether it's romantic or friendships, we need that. And we're really craving it, especially coming out of the pandemic. We're still healing from that. And that isolation has driven many people to crave love, but feel like they don't really know how to go about finding it.
The idea too of maybe how they're told to find it as well, right? That social conditioning of like, well, this is how you do it, and that's what you do, and this is what you don't do. And there's so much to that, right?
Yeah, we all got that, we read Miss Manners, and, we have our parents telling us that you're supposed to be with somebody who's similar to you. You're supposed to be with somebody in your community, or even, it's so funny. Like, I talk about all these myths in the book of what we've taken on that are really not true signs of compatibility.
Yeah.
These beliefs, like, I always start my clients out with mindset, both what you have to offer in a relationship, what you're looking for in a relationship, what are your predominant thoughts about relationships and dating. And when I ask people what they're looking for, they either tell me, I'll know it when I see it, which says to me, like, girl,
You
you
don't know.
haven't thought about it for a second. Or they send me their list. And here's the really weird thing, and it was funny, I was just watching a TikTok video where somebody was talking about how a matchmaker rejected them for the qualities that they were looking for, and I was like, "Oh my god, this lady is so upset because this list the matchmaker felt was unattainable." And it's the same list, Colby. It's the same list. I swear, it's literally in the book, the exact list that people have repeated to me over and over again for the
Mhm.
last 10, 15,
Yeah.
17 years that I've been doing this. And that to me says we have to step back here and really identify the relationship that's right for you is not necessarily the relationship that's right for me. So your list should not be the same as the next person's list and the next person's list. So I'm not surprised that a matchmaker can't deliver you the same person's list, because they're already delivering it for everybody else.
There. It's already taken. And that's one of the things too I know with my clients, especially, those looking for love. What I find is sometimes they're so rigid on what they think they want versus maybe, who is the most compatible person for them. They want them to look exactly like this or do exactly this or make this exactly, and of course it's certainly good to know what you want, but I think sometimes when there's so much rigidness about it rather than saying, you know do you want them to make you laugh? Do you want them to hold you when you're ill? Do you want them to support you on a new project or a new endeavor? Like those things feel to be important. And sometimes I find that people don't really sit deeply with what they truly want.
You're exactly right. And what you just described, Colby, it's really stepping into the feeling of being in that relationship rather than dating by the list,
Yeah.
really getting in touch with that feeling of the relationship you're calling in, because you may not recognize it on the surface. They might be too short, or they might not make enough money, or they might live, 5 miles outside of the radius you're searching. And there's so many things, like, I'm not speaking from my high horse of like having done it perfectly the whole
Mhm.
time. I'm speaking from a perspective of literally having been in the shoes of any singles who are listening right now, that I was going about it all the wrong way. I was attracted to all the wrong things, and it felt totally different when I met my husband. It felt totally different than it had felt before. And it also was a feeling that I was able to replicate from a lot of the work that I did internally of clarifying that, of meditating. And I talk about this in F the Fairy Tale, of, a lot of the work that you
Yeah.
do with clients and students. of really dropping into that space of visualizing what it will look like and feel like for you from your vantage point instead of just going based on the list because it might not look the same, but it's going to feel the same for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too what's really interesting is a lot of times, people want the quick fix rather than doing that inner work. And that inner work is so important. I know for me, I had a relationship and it just, you pull in some of that toxicity. And I was like, no, 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 no. I literally said, I'm done until I feel that I can be in a healthy relationship. And that's it. Like, I'm going to just keep working until I feel that way. And then next thing you know, quite a few years, but I met my fiance and that was it. Like literally, I hadn't dated anyone in a number of years. And then I meet him and then that was it. It literally the minute I saw him, it was kind of like everything I knew was like right there in an actual person. And I was like, "Oh, wow. There you are."
Yeah. Yeah, I used to tell my husband that I made him up when we first started dating, and finally, after a while, he was like, "I'm right here, like,
Yeah.
you can't keep pretending like I'm a figment of your imagination." I'm like, "Okay, okay, you're real." But it really does feel like that when
Yes.
you've been doing it the hard way for so long, and
Yeah.
it just feels like, oh, you're pushing this dating boulder up a hill, and you're, like, making excuses for relationships that aren't right. You're trying to make them fit. You're compromising your values. You're becoming someone you're not. You're taking on different activities and interests and personas that aren't even really authentic to you. And then you step back and do what you did to just take a pause and really get clear on who you are. And that's why that is the first thing that I said when we began this conversation of like, how do I help people
Yeah.
clarify that? You got to
Yeah.
start here with
Yes.
you. And then you start thinking, okay, who's the person that fits with that? And then you start thinking about what's that going to look like? What's that going to feel like? So I help people move from these myths that we start with into the pillars of long term compatibility. And the first two of those are goals and values. And those are the kind of things, and that may be what you felt like when you got so aligned on your life goals and your values that when this person stepped into your path, you didn't have to second guess it because
Yeah.
it was already aligned in that way.
One of the other things too, and I gotta, we're just gonna take all the advice we can today, for all the listeners, and then they can run out and buy the fairy tale. I think that relationships, they aren't always like super easy. That there are challenges. I find though, as long as you see it getting progressively better, as long as you see improvement of things you're working through or talking about or coming together. But I think some people think, oh, it's supposed to be perfect and that's it. Yeah, not in my experience, but I want to hear the professional take on
Yeah, you're really touching on one of the other big myths, which I
it.
see as the soulmate myth. And I want to get your take on it,
Yes.
Colby.
Oh, yes. I was going to bring this up.
Because I feel like the quest for perfection, the quest
Mhm.
for even the idea, there's your half soul is out there somewhere and you need to be completed by your twin flame, and your whole relationship journey is a quest to find this ideal person. The reality is, in my research for the book, I found about 70% of people believe in soulmates. Yet I
Mhm.
feel like this concept of soulmates, one, keeps people single because they're
Yeah.
always questioning, they're always on that quest. And two, keeps people in relationships from really being able to value all aspects of their partner and fully lean into the relationship that they're in, because at the first sign of conflict we think, oh well, they weren't my soulmate, then that's a sign they
Yes.
weren't my soulmate, and then I'm just going to
Yes.
run away. But I want to
Yes.
know what your take is on soulmates, because I know it can be a controversial topic.
No, I mean, here's what's interesting. I believe for me, the idea of soulmates, we have many. Your best friend can be your soulmate. A mentor, a teacher could be a soulmate. A soulmate is someone who steps in And again, maybe it is for, that reason, season, lifetime, as we like to say. The twin flame, I find that I think it can keep people in the past. I feel like I'll have clients and they'll say, oh my gosh, this person, I love them. They were my soulmate. I just know it. But, they broke up. And, I can tell the person was completely non-committal, that it wasn't the right person for them, but they're stuck in it. They don't want to be open to the idea of that maybe that wasn't. So I agree. I would always feel like, oh, we have one twin flame, right? The other half of you. Now, I do understand the idea of someone kind of being a compliment to you. I do see that, but I agree where maybe we just don't have one. I know for me, the person I'm with now, and there's definitely one other person that I probably could have had my life with either one of them, and it would have been beautiful and amazing and fulfilling. And so I believe that, we definitely can have more than one. And I also believe that at the end of the day, your partner, your life partner, I think we choose to have a partnership with that person. There is a conscious decision of, I choose them to have this experience with the ups and downs and good and bad.
Yeah. I say in F the Fairy Tale that relationships are a mirror and
Yeah.
they will show you your greatest
Yes.
strengths and they will also amplify your greatest weaknesses. But I feel like it's really most helpful to adopt a relationship growth mindset where you really feel like, just you were saying, as you were saying, you're choosing this person, you're choosing every day, and you're taking each of those moments, good, bad, ugly, whatever, however, and that's all subjective anyway of how you're looking at it from your
Yes.
vantage point. But all of those moments, what if we just flipped our perspective and saw it as an opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
And even the relationships that don't work out, what could be taken from that experience, as you said, that then can be applied to the next relationship or in and even maybe it's something that you can learn from for a non-romantic relationship. Maybe it's something you can learn for your work, or maybe it can impact the way that you communicate with your family or your friends. But I just see relationships as a huge opportunity and a lot of times when we're attached to that idea of, well, this person is or is not my soulmate, because the soulmate idea also keeps people in many relationships that are hurting them.
That's
So this
right. They
person's my
do.
soulmate. So, well, I'm just going
Well,
to tough it out and I'm going to deal with it. And we
yeah,
don't have to do that. Our lives are short. So
that's
it's
right.
like we have to mindfully choose the relationships we're investing in.
Yeah, and that's even why, I try to even tell people too, again, with the soulmate ideas, right? Reason, season, lifetime. That maybe they came into your life to you learn something, and then that's it. You're done. And maybe you're learning boundaries. Maybe you're learning self worth. Maybe you're learning self love, regardless of what it is. I guess I use the word soulmate really as a teacher. At some point, they come in and they're a teacher, right? And they come in into many different areas, and if we're willing to do the inner work and the self work, then I feel like we really can learn from each and every relationship that we are in. Now, I do know in the book, F the Fairy Tale. First of all, how did you come up with the title? I just share that, please.
Well, it actually had a different title originally because I was really building it around these love myths.
Hmm.
But it I felt compelled to have a title that really captured the words that my clients and my listeners on Dates and Mates were saying to me,
Yeah.
and that also captured the feeling that I have always had in my coaching that the old rules no longer apply. And they were nice for teaching us, you learn your basic reading, writing, arithmetic, and then you build from there. So we learned the basics, but we're in a completely new paradigm where the way that we connect, the way that we meet someone today, totally different. Whether you meet online or offline,
Yeah.
we are different even in the offline spaces than we once were because of the technology that we have. The way we communicate is different. 20 years ago, we did not text to ask someone out on a date. We could not Google stalk them before a date and find out everything about them, or Instagram. We didn't have a Finsta with like we had one Instagram for our friends and one for the people we might date. We didn't have all of these elements. And then on top of that, when you layer in the pandemic and when you
Yeah.
layer in the, the the crisis we have around financial stability and like just so many things happening in the world, it's a different time.
Yeah.
So it feels like we are in a place where we need to say F that to whatever the old rule was. Let's be willing to embrace it. I hear a lot of frustration and um I just hear a lot of daters that are, like, clinging to this idea of the old-fashioned way of dating. I don't
Yeah.
wanna do it this way because that's not the story that was told to me, or just I didn't picture that that's how I was gonna meet my person.
Yeah.
And I this book is really an invitation to let that go, and, like, we're here now. You're
Yeah.
you're
It is what
already
it
on the
is.
plane,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
You're gonna get to the destination, so you might as well, like, pop a movie on, have a good time with it, and enjoy the journey.
I love to tell my clients too, be open to the app so that, and don't get discouraged. Like, of course, you're gonna have a bad date. It's gonna be not fun. It's not gonna be your person. Don't get discouraged. I love to say everyone's always Mr. Wrong until you find Mr. Right, or whoever it is for that person, right? Because again, we're just gonna learn and grow from those experiences. And the other thing too is, you talk about intuition in the book. So, I think intuition, obviously, I'm a big believer in intuition. But share with me your feelings of intuition and love.
I'm so glad that you brought this up. And honestly, Colby, I was so excited to talk to you about this part of the book because it's kind of become a mission since I met you. It's become a mission of mine to help people to access their own intuition in dating. I'm not even going to bring up like the P word or the M word, the psychic or the medium, because a lot of people have a not obviously listeners of this show, but, a lot of the clients that come to me who've seen me on the Drew Barrymore show, and I have a very methodical, sort of grounded, strategic approach to dating. If I come in with if I come in with like use your psychic gifts, they're like, "What is this lady talking about?" So, intuition I find is a word that more people can access, but it's something that we all have, and I know
Yes.
your listeners and viewers know that, but a lot of times it's not applied to dating, and when we get into the sort of, the snowball effect of falling in love, it's like our intuition gets short-circuited, and
Yeah.
we're just going based on the chemistry, and it's hard for us to really listen to what's happening in our bodies and listening to all the signals that we're actually getting.
How many times those red flags kind of come up, I would say pretty early. I'd say within the first 3 months maybe of meeting someone and getting to know them. But I find so many people, especially, women, they'll ignore them. They'll try to justify them. They'll try to rationalize. Um, they'll empathize with the person they're dating rather than just saying, "Hey, wait a second, there's something kind of serious here we need to look at and kind of talk about." But what is your take on red flags?
I feel like red flags are always there if you're looking for them.
Yeah.
But, so recently I've tried to sort of diminish the focus on red
Yeah.
flags because it's almost like that confirmation bias. It's like, "Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
There's a red flag. I'm out." But there is something that is happening in that early phase of, uh, I call it the chemistry myth when we're getting caught up in that in having the feelings and
Yeah.
and the momentum of that early part of a date that we kinda disconnect from what's happening in our biology and the fact that we are having, like, massive neurotransmitter hormonal releases that are making you make things okay and
Yeah.
making you make things fit. And we literally can get addicted to that feeling of like, "Oh, he called me. He sent me a text. He wants to see me again. Oh, we're intimate. I'm gonna see him next week." It's like it takes over from our our logic and from our intuition. I just ask people to sort of slow that process down and do
Yeah.
a lot of the exercises that I know you teach about really dropping into what they're feeling, and
Yeah.
especially even before the first 3 months. Like, I have my clients start to do this with swiping, and I do this when I'm swiping for my VIP clients. I do this for them automatically. Like, I have a client I talk about in the book, Annette, who I was doing, we call it a hot list for her of people, and when I'm swiping and I don't have all of the feels, like, I'm not invested in it in the way that somebody is invested in their own dating life. I'm looking at it a little bit more strategically, and I'm able to access my own intuition. I ended up hot listing this guy among 4 guys, and that guy ended up being her husband, and now they're married. They're
Wow.
coming to see me on the Drew Barrymore show next week. The crazy thing, Colby, is that they were right under each other's nose the entire time.
Yeah.
They lived and she had been searching a 2-hour radius of she lived in a kind of rural area, but the guy was within 5 miles of her house. They went to the same high school, but they're 5 years apart, so they didn't know each other. Maybe there's like an angel numbers 5 thing in here. They, had worked at the same company, but in different divisions. They were right there under each other's nose, but it sort of took another layer of awareness to present them, and of course, they met online, because they weren't meeting each other in their normal orbit, but they were both right there. And so if I can teach someone else how to do that for themselves, how to drop into that
Yeah.
intuition and use a blend of strategy, which I talk a
Yes.
lot about, in the book, and then also the intuition to check into how you're feeling. Like, I had dates, I'm sure you did too, where I was like, "Mm-mm, like, something's wrong. I don't know what it is. I don't need to find out, but I'm gonna go ahead and say no to the second date because something here in me is telling me this is a no." I wanna
Yes.
do that for people, with people, and teach people how to really hear that even just beyond the red flags, because I find a lot of times people will say, like, chewing their food too loudly, "That's a red flag." Like, no, 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 no.
Oh, yeah.
Deeper
I think
let's
I
go
was
deeper
meaning
level.
more like toxicity, more dangerous things of like,
Well,
hey,
yeah.
um,
Yeah, like, there's definitely I talk about the clear red flags in the book of safety, and I'm
yeah.
also like, the 2 things I'm really bullish about this year, Colby, are intuition.
Yes.
No, there's 3 things. You have to give me 3 things. Intuition, empathy,
Yeah.
and safety.
Yeah.
Safety, especially safety for women, and that's
Yes.
also where the intuition really comes into play because
Yes.
that's a big shift from, like, we used to meet people in our local communities and, like, they knew your mom, they went to your church, they were in your neighborhood, so there was some accountability. We are meeting strangers, and this has been a long evolution. It's not like we just started meeting strangers when online dating started. Like, I have plenty of, like, met a guy in a bar stories that I'll save for another show. But you're meeting strangers, there's no connection points usually or very few. So people aren't always on their best behavior, and it's really key that you develop the intuitive ability to know who is safe for you.
What do you feel out of all of your pillars? what would your favorite pillar be?
Oh my gosh, nobody's asked me that. My favorite pillar, I think my favorite pillar is communication. And
Okay.
and it's really paired with conflict resolution, as you were saying earlier, because I think that conflict resolution skill that we build with a partner, and it's different from partner to partner and from person to person in your life, but I I think it's so juicy. I think there's so much discovery in it. So that's my favorite pillar, but we talked about goals, we talked about values, we talked about now communication and conflict resolution. And the last one is trust. And that's kind of a close second
Yeah.
because trust is the pillar that takes the longest to build but is the hardest to repair when it's broken. So it's sorta like it's like blowing glass or something, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
It's like you have to do it really slowly. I've never blown glass, but I've seen it done. You have to do it really slowly, and it's really fragile, but then once it's cooled and once it's done, it's strong and it
Yeah.
can last.
Do you think trust can be rebuilt if it's been broken?
Mm, it can. But it does require both people having an investment in that happening. And
Okay.
that's the thing that's tricky, like, and I'm sure you see that a lot with your clients too, is that it's not always sometimes it's one-sided, you know?
Yes. Yeah, I would agree. Well, let's just show the book cover one more time
Woo!
here. F rewrite the dating myths and live your own love story. F the fairy tale. I am so excited for this. Where can our listeners purchase this book?
Well, you can get the book pretty much in any of your favorite booksellers. I was gonna say
Yes.
bookstores. Booksellers, bookstores. You can go to my link,
Yep.
fthefairytalebook.com. That's the letter F. You can follow me on Instagram or all the socials at Damona Hoffman, or listen to the Dates and Mates podcast, which I've been doing like clockwork every every week for 11 years.
Yay, that's amazing. Well, we're going to go ahead and put the book link in the show notes too, so that anyone listening back to the podcast can go ahead and just easily click that link to purchase the book. But I'm really excited, and it feels so positive that this book really is going to help take the dating world to the next level for many people, and that true love is out there, and that people should remember that, maybe be optimistic and have faith in that, right?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Colby. And like if you say it's going to be a huge success, I believe you because you know things.
It is going to be amazing, and thank you so much, Damona, for being here, for sharing, and for sharing the book. Congratulations to you, and wishing you all of the success that is coming your way with it.
Thank you, Colby.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today with Damona. Get out and get F the fairy tale, right? What an amazing guide to help anyone out there just really find the best relationship for you, that compatible partner, and maybe break through the myths and understand those pillars that are essential to building a strong and healthy relationship, one that you deserve. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Colby Rebel Show. Be sure to follow Colby on social media at Psychic Rebel. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, please head on over to iTunes to leave a review to help Colby grow the tribe. Colby is an international psychic medium, teacher, best-selling author, and speaker. She is a master teacher of the Lisa Williams International School of Spiritual Development and is the owner of the Colby Rebel Spirit Center in Los Angeles. Visit colbyrebel.com.